Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for signing on. First thing I want to do is to thank Charlotte for getting the ball rolling on this. I thought it was a great idea. It's rare that I get an opportunity to speak to so many people at once, especially on a virtual meeting, about how to get their business back up and running. Thanks. So Pat has actually put together a presentation, so I'm going to kick it off to him now, and we can start off with that. From the planning department, excuse me.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I just want to kind of just give a...
I think I lost you. Yeah, I'm good.
I just wanted to give a kind of a brief introduction of who we have on the call today. Obviously, Skull Reese, Director of Norwood Public Health Department. Paul Alkiotis, Director of Norwood Planning, Community Planning and Economic Development. Myself, Patrick Shanes. Joe Collin is a Budget and Management Analysis. I'm not sure if he's on today, but Tom O'Rourke of the National Chamber has been involved with us. And obviously Charlotte Walsh, the President of Friends of Norwood Center, and Mary Ellen Horgan-Coria, the Friends of Norwood Center Liaison. When we get to a point after the presentation, if anyone has any existing, future questions or just wants to know who to reach out to for specific information, I'm going to probably post this presentation on the Planning and Economic Development webpage, where you can access our links and you can go back through some of the information shown. Below is just some quick emails for a couple of our presenters. Right now, I just kind of want to bring us to where we are today. Obviously, if everyone's familiar with the phased reopening approach from the state government, we are currently in phase 1. And Segal, feel free to interrupt me at any time if I misstate anything. But I believe phase 1 started on May 18th. These phases are predicted to last no fewer than 3 weeks. All this is kind of dependent on public health data trends. So it could certainly go beyond 3 weeks. It could step back, from phase 1 to a more strict lockdown environment. So everything is kind of up to where the data is going. For restaurants, which is our main focus today, that is at the earliest, I believe, June 8th, which would be the 3-week mark. Scully, correct me if I'm wrong there, but restaurants, currently can be open now for takeout and delivery. A few of you might have noticed, I believe I sent a survey out a few months ago. We do have a page on our website. The Chamber of Commerce does as well, just trying to put the word out there of who is open for takeout and delivery. If after this, if you have not, if you are open and don't have your information on there currently, please reach out to me and I'll try to put that information on our webpage as soon as possible. One of the big issues when it comes to phase 2 in restaurants is we're anticipating problems with indoor seating capacity. A lot of this has to do with the requirements of being for COVID-19 related, being 6 feet apart. And having restrictions for how many tables and patrons we can have in a restaurant at any time. So one of the main solutions to this is anticipated, opening up outdoor dining as a possibility. Many restaurants, either have this as an option now, but a lot, I think, it's something new to them. It's something that you're not customary of doing. So we want to get to a position where we can be an assistance to you and help you open safely and make sure that you have additional options besides the indoor seating capacity, which could restrict potential revenue for you. We do have some good news. As of yesterday, on the 26th, the Board of Selectmen have approved revised temporary outdoor dining regulations. This was done in order to expedite the process for allowing for outdoor dining. We can talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation. And I could show you the link later in the presentation as well, where we have those regulations and the application stored on our website. Kind of show us where we are now. Scott, I don't know if you have anything in terms of just what restaurants can anticipate for what they need to do from a health department standpoint.
Yeah, so sort of everything that we enforce now has a parallel track. So you guys know our typical enforcement regulations around food safety, where now everything also has sort of a a COVID controls protocols track too. So unfortunately, we don't have that information yet from the state as exactly what it's going to look like. I think on the previous slide, actually, Pat had a link to the general guidelines for all businesses. So we know it will at least follow that outline, but there will be additional specific protocols for food establishments. They have promised me it's going to be released this week. So hopefully we will get it ahead of when, like before we go into phase 2, because phase 1, we received all the guidance and protocols the day we started phase 1. And you can imagine from just providing information to enforcement, that's very difficult. Never mind the constantly changing environment that we're dealing with. So I'll ask for your patience, but I'm optimistic that we will have information this week that we will be able to share so we can plan for when eventually phase 2 comes. So fingers crossed on that. And most of the time we get the information right when the public does. We don't really get it ahead of time. But they're telling us that we're going to get this before we go into phase 2. So like I said, I'm optimistic here.
Yep. So like I mentioned, a lot of information right now we're still holding, we're still waiting on. This link right here, if I just want to show you, will bring us to kind of a reopening, more detailed industry reopening guidelines. And all this is found on MassGov with their reopening Massachusetts website. So information, fresh, particular, go down. There we are. So phase 1, like as we mentioned before, continue to do takedown delivery. Phase 2, their committee is actively trying to put together more detailed information for health guidelines. So we are waiting on that as the rest of the state.
No.
Yeah, Paul, did you say something?
Yes. I'd just like to talk for a couple minutes about what restaurant owners can do to begin to plan for their outdoor seating. The first thing that you should do is go to our website and get those outdoor seating regulations that the selectmen approved yesterday. And this will be a work in progress with each owner that wants to set up shop outside. Work in progress is going to involve the building department, the health department, and the engineering department. What we're going to need you to do is to do some conceptual plans of how you would like to utilize the sidewalk or the parking lot, the outdoor space that you want to set up for outdoor dining. So you're going to need to take some measurements and prepare a simple drawing which shows the space that's available and where you would like to position your tables and chairs and any equipment that you're going to have outside. I think it's safe to assume that you're going to need to keep the tables and chairs at least 6 feet apart from each other. So that's we're not going to require any kind of a complicated plan that needs to be done by an engineer, a site plan, or anything. But we are going to need to have something which clearly shows what space you would like to utilize and how you're going to utilize that space. You will submit the plan along with an application form, and the Board of Health will be in charge of sending those plans out to the other departments that need to take a look at them, getting any comments or feedback from those other departments, and communicating that back to you in case you need to make some adjustments to the layout of your outdoor seating area. The town manager will review the application, and then it will receive final approval from the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. There's currently an effort at the state level to have the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission relax some of their regulations for serving alcohol outside. Nothing has been approved yet. We actually haven't seen anything, but there is a bill available, and there's a link to it on our website if you want to take a look at it. And if you want to advocate support for that, you can contact the state rep or state senator to support that bill. But at this point in time, any alcohol outside will require a separate approval from the Board of Selectmen. And they understand that this is something that they will need to be doing as we move forward, trying to sort our way out on how we're going to navigate the regulations from the state to allow for outdoor dining. Norwood is one of many communities in the state and in the country that is starting to go in this direction. And we would like to try to make outdoor dining simple and easy for you to gain approval for. Sigal, do you want to open it up for questions?
Yeah, that's what I thought. The majority, I thought this could be for questions. And then I would like to say if the group is amenable to it, to maybe doing this again when we have the guidance and once you start implementing it. It's one thing to sort of look at it and it all looks great. And then when you put it into action, you notice where the little details are, and that's where the questions usually arise. So I think it'd be great if we could do this, throughout the process, because I feel like there'll be questions along the way. And we had a similar call with our places of worship, and that was really my intention, to just make myself and the team available for any questions for the group. It's going to be a little hard with this size of a group. I did mute you if you didn't mute yourself, so I think you can unmute yourself though, just because there was a lot of background noise. But why don't we try to open it up for questions? If those of you that are on the virtual meeting, you can also use the chat feature. And then I can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself to ask a question. I can call on you. Those on the phone, it's going to be a little bit of a free-for-all, so let's give it a try.
So Zagali, I'm Sean Wilcox from One Bistro in the 4 Point Sheridan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Probably the question we all want to know, which you probably don't have an answer, but I'll try anyway, is any inside insight on what is going to happen on the 8th? Whether it's outside only, per the Rhode Island model, or, limited capacity inside.
Well, I definitely can't say anything for sure, but, we're doing the same things you're doing, is looking at what other states are doing and also what they're doing with other industries. So definitely going to be a reduction in occupancy. We look at the office spaces where they have a 25%. I think it's going to encourage outdoor dining. I think that logically just makes sense. There's a lot less risk when you're outdoors because of the air movement. So I don't have an exact answer on that, but I hope too soon.
Thank you.
And then I go, Tom was next. Tom O'Rourke, he had a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks for hosting this call. And for putting the regulations together. So 2 things. One, I was on a similar call with Dedham this morning, and Representative McMurtry was on the call, and he sounded very favorable about that outside alcohol legislation being passed. He said there's a lot of support for it, and it looks good. But as Paul said, if you want to let your legislator know you support it, that always helps. My question was in regards to the restaurants setting up outside. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of equipment, tables, chairs, maybe umbrellas, heaters, things like that. What should they consider in terms of overnight accommodations? Can stuff be left out overnight? Would it be secure, or does everything have to go back inside?
I kick that one over to Paul. Did we have any plans for that?
We haven't thought about that.
No, I don't.
Certainly security would be a concern, leaving anything outside.
Sorry, it's really important that you mute yourself when you're not talking, because it's just really hard to hear people. I know it's complicated on a big call like this. Then Charlotte said, just wondering how long the approval process will take for outdoor seating applications. I think our plan is to move them pretty quickly. My review will really be, do you meet the guidance? Do you meet the any orders from the governor or the Department of Public Health as far as the social distancing? I'm sure there'll be requirements for cleaning the tables and things like that. And the number of seats, maybe restricting it to family members only at a table. So that's the type of things I'm going to be looking at. And then it's going to, Paul, I'll ask you to follow up on this. Then it's going to quickly go to those other departments for their review. We hope to get back couple days. What do you think, Paul?
I'd like to say that we'd be able to review and approve these applications within a week or so. They are going to need to be routed around to some different departments depending on what is being proposed. For example, if somebody's proposing a stand-up outdoor heater, then we'll probably want the fire department to just check that. So we understand that there's probably going to be a lot of you that are going to be applying all at once, and we're going to set aside time and make ourselves available to try to process those applications in a timely manner. I'd like to think that a week or maybe 10 days we would be able to issue those licenses.
And again, with the idea that hopefully we get some information ahead of time, so maybe even before we hit phase 2, we can start reviewing those things, and then once we hit phase 2, we can be out and running, ready to go with it. Is it possible to, I'm reading on the next question, is it possible to close the street? There's a section on Guile that would be easy to do and not really cause any disruptions. That's above my pay grade, closing streets, but I know there's some talk of that.
So Gal, there is an initiative that Tony Mizuko is working on to close off the section of Central Street in front of the theater. And the tentative plans are to have the DPW install some barriers on Friday afternoons and remove those barriers on Sunday night. And that will basically create an extension of the town green. The town plans on purchasing some tables and chairs, some outdoor furniture that we would set up in that section of the street and on the town green. And we're also looking at other kinds of recreational things that could accompany that, some lawn game type things. And so this is a plan that's kind of in the conceptual phase. Yesterday, the Board of Selectmen voted to support this. The general manager has some money available to purchase this equipment, and we're going to be in conference with the other departments about how to lay that out and set it up. And so our intent would be to make more of the town's public space available and comfortable for people that want to come to the downtown in the evenings during the summer and you know, get something to eat or an ice cream and socially distance, but visit with their friends and neighbors in the community.
Thanks, Paul. The next question, I missed where we would send those applications for the new outdoor dining request. Is it a specific person or department? So the applications, will they be on your website? We'll probably put them on both. Yes, on both websites, the health department and the planning department. And then the first submittal will actually be to the health department, and you can send it to health@ma.gov. You can also, you know, take paper copies. It doesn't have to be electronic. I would wait though at this point until we can actually see the guidance, because you really can't develop your plans until we know what the restrictions will be. But I do think everybody should start thinking about how they can best make it work for their business with the general guidance that we have. Next question was, can we occupy the sidewalk? Yes, that's part of the plan. Do you want to give any more detail, Paul, or?
Yeah, so you can occupy the sidewalk, and in some cases there may be portions of the street that would be available. Your sections of parking lots of your private parking lots are available, and for those restaurants that are on bigger pieces of property outside the downtown, they also may be able to use some yard area. And so I envision there might be some tents going up, and the outdoor seating requirements require some form of barrier so that somebody walking down the sidewalk doesn't, you know, walk right into the middle of your outdoor seating area. So you need to think about some type of barrier that is light and removable and flexible, that can be set up and taken down each day if you need to do that, and to provide some kind of structured space for you to continue to do your business on the public sidewalk.
Actually,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, jump on in, Maurice, of course.
My name is Maurice DeVool. I'm one of the owners of Biblos Restaurant, Norwood Center. You mentioned closing Central Street. I would like to know how many restaurants do we have on Central Street versus Washington Street? I mean, is there any consideration of closing maybe this section between Walpole Street and then Manhattan Street at weekends at least, so we could use it as part of a walking area and then dining area in Norwood Center? Thank you.
As you know, that there's only 2 restaurants that front on that section of Central Street, and we had given some consideration for closing portions of other streets. We thought about closing a section of Washington Street, but it's a busy, as you know, thoroughfare. It's part, and so we hadn't gotten to that point where we think closing a portion of Washington Street is a good idea at this point in time, but I wouldn't rule it out. We're here listening to your comments and taking your feedback. And if that's something that the restaurant owners that are located on Washington Street really would like to see, I would say that you should contact the selectman's office and let them know, and the general manager's office. And that's something that we can return to and decide if that's something we want to do.
So you mentioned there are only 2 restaurants on Washington Street. That's what I understood from you now?
No, the portion of Central Street that we are considering closing in front of the theater has the ice cream shop and express pizza. So that section of road that we're considering to close just has two restaurant operations fronting on it.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to read the next question. Should we make our plans to incorporate parking spaces in front of our business? We are on Washington Street and would have little opportunity for many seats using the sidewalk. So I think we've addressed that a little, but that would be part of each design. Again, I'm going to kick it to you, Paul. This is more about the outdoor seating plan.
Thanks, Sigal. So what we envision is that, as you know, we have a row of on-street parking on both sides of Washington Street. Once a business occupies the sidewalk, we need to provide pedestrian access past that business. And what we're planning to do is to install some type of barriers. We're looking at plastic jersey barriers that could be removed and set up fairly easily by the Department of Public Works. And so that the row of on-street parking will turn out to be a part of the new sidewalk, the pedestrian way. So the restaurants could utilize the sidewalk in front of their store, and then we will create a pedestrian way within the existing current parking spaces on either side of Washington Street.
I realize this is kind of unique to us, but I was wondering if outdoor seating privileges would be something that breweries would be eligible for as well.
No.
Adam, we definitely don't want to leave out the brewery. Yes, we envision if you have space around your building, you could utilize a portion of your parking area and set up a tent if you would like, something like that, with a beer garden. Because we are anticipating the state will limit the occupancy load of each restaurant. Say, for example, if they say you can only operate at 25 or 50% capacity, then we know that you're not going to need that many parking spaces as normal. And so in terms of zoning relief, we've kind of taken a practical approach and said, if the restaurant can only hold 25% of the occupancy load, then you wouldn't need the other 75% of the parking spaces.
So I don't see anything there that.
Similar to the brewery question, what about, there's a question here about private events, or is it only for restaurant seating?
No,
I don't think there's anything in the regulations that would preclude a private event.
And then what is the time frame? When will this expire? It may be early, but is it something that Norwood is planning to do seasonally?
This will require silt fence and a compost sod.
Oh, we got some background there. So
at this point in time, we're looking at this as being seasonal, and I think the selectmen, their regulations were temporary, and they can put an end to those temporary regulations at any time. But given what we know today, I envision that these regulations will stay in place until till the fall, when it gets too cold to really be able to enjoy the outside dining.
This is actually internal confusion. Paul, where exactly would the application be sent? The first step?
I think the health department needs to lead the process. And so while the application forms are available on the planning or the health department webpage, the application should go to the health department, and your staff will coordinate that.
Yeah, exactly. Because really the first look of it is going to be, does it meet all the orders and requirements coming from the state? That's going to be the first pass through. And then we can move on to sort of the other logistical issues. Was there a question here? Is there a limit on the amount of tables, or as long as they are 6 feet apart? I think the distancing is going to be the requirement. You're going to be limited by the area that you have. So I guess those are going to be the two limiting factors. Paul's nodding yes. That's all the written questions I have. So we're going to try and open it up. If anybody else has questions on the phone or.
I have a question.
Go right
Can you hear
ahead.
me? Okay.
Yes,
My question is, so restaurants are phase 2, but bars are phase 3. So I'm from the Cafe Venice. So our back room is a bar, but we use food in there. So are we able to open that up also and just not having anybody sit at the bar? Or will that room have to be closed until the bar's open?
So you can't hold me to my answer here because I don't really know yet.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
what I anticipate that means is that, yeah, they don't want people sitting along the bar in close contact, but that if you have tables where families can gather and social distance from other groups, if they even allow indoor seating at this point, that's how I anticipate I would interpret that. But we'll have to see exactly what the details are when it comes out.
Okay, thank you.
I had another written question. If the capacity is at 25%, are we allowed to meet the 25% capacity in the building and have more patrons seating outside? That is our hope. We don't know what the capacity will be inside, but the hope is that we will be able to fit more people putting them outside. Yes. And then I'm thinking, Joe, I might ask you to chime in on this. I don't really know. Controls protection will be provided for guests and the people who might just be walking by. There will have to be some sort of separation barrier. I think Paul's talked about that. Access to bathrooms and hand washing stations. I think there are going to be requirements to have hand sanitizer in and around your facility and your food establishment, both for your workers and the patrons. And any access to bathrooms, I think, would have to be the same as if what the rules are regarding your occupancy and whether you have to, technically everybody has to provide a bathroom, but it also depends on your seating. And that's more of a building department as far as access to the bathrooms question. Is that what you're getting at, Joe?
Yes, it is. Thanks, Sigal. And I had just sent you one more question.
I don't see the additional question, but is there anybody else you want to ask me over the?
Yep, Sigal, just one more question. I think you've already spelled this out, but who ultimately is this a Board of Health? Who's driving this from a control standpoint? Is it ultimately the Board of Health's responsibility?
As far as enforcement, I mean, yeah, the process will be driven out of the health department office, but ultimately it comes from the general manager, the final approval.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
Sure.
Sigal, I just had a quick question. So in terms of the occupancy level, I know that the governor has said that gatherings of 10 or more is kind of where not happening yet. Is this going to be different and it's going to be based on the occupancy of the space?
Yeah, do you mind just, if people are speaking, if they could just identify who they are and where
Oh,
they're from?
sorry, I'm Mindy
who I'm
from
talking
4
to.
Points.
That's fine. Hi, Mindy. Oh, Mindy, hi.
Hi.
I have a lot of squares on my screen here. I don't know who's talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I anticipate if they do an occupancy, it'll be a percentage like they did with offices. Right now, there's a restriction on 10 people gathering, more than 10 people gathering in an enclosed area, an enclosed space. That doesn't apply to outdoor spaces. So my guess is because that's what they did with offices, they did a % of capacity. It seems relevant. So if you have a really big place, you can socially distance more people. So it makes sense to do a percentage. But again, don't hold me to that. We'll see what comes out.
Yeah.
I've got one more question. Has there been any guidance on a capacity per table? If a table is outside, like no more than 6 people per table or something like that?
I'm going to guess the first step is going to be restricted to household family members at a table together. I don't know how much they're going to allow more than that. Again, that's a guess. Any other questions?
So we're gonna need to ask to identify people by family, or how we're gonna enforce that? I mean, if people come in as groups of 4 or 6 and they want to have a table, should we ask their IDs and then check and make sure that they are part of one family? Is this how we're gonna be looking at it?
Yeah, I think that's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be, you're just going to have to ask and take their word for it. A lot of this is like that. Question I get all the time is when people travel back to Massachusetts, they're still supposed to self-quarantine for 14 days. We have no idea who's coming in and out of Massachusetts, but it's that we're asking the public to do the right thing. I don't think it's going to be something you're going to have to police. Are you actually, part of a family? Do you live together? You can maybe ask it, but of course you're not going to. If somebody says yes, you just yes. And that's a similar question I have here in the chat. Is it the responsibility on controlling social distancing on the staff or on the customers? I don't know yet. I would guess they're going to put it on the business owners to enforce it within their own facility, social distancing. That's a guess. But I think like anything else we're doing here, most people want to do the right thing and they're very cautious about this. So I think most of our residents and customers here are gonna listen to the guidance and the rules and do the right thing.
We don't think DNA testing is going to be required.
Thank you, Paul.
I have a question. That's okay. I'm calling from the Shamrock Pub. I'm wondering about the outdoor seating that's on the sidewalk area. Would they be allowed to smoke?
No, there'll be no smoking in the outdoor seating areas.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question. I'm Mary with Stanley from Liney's Pub. Typically, we have to keep our doors closed, just to prevent flies and bugs and things. But with outdoor seating and servers going in and out with food, and people also touching the doors and opening and closing them to go to the bathrooms, would we be considered to be allowed to keep the doors open for ease of egress?
That's going to depend on what your facility looks like. So technically, if you have a closed off kitchen from your dining area, you might be able to open the doors. The idea is to keep the flying insects from your kitchen area. So it depends on your facility. Most of them are going to need to have closed doors. And that's where we get into the frequent cleaning that I'm sure will be part of the guidance. You're gonna have to clean those doorknobs in those bathrooms more frequently and probably log it. So it'll be part of your control plan. It's gonna get cleaned, the doorknobs will get cleaned every hour, bathrooms cleaned every hour and logged with initials type of thing. Again, that's what I'm anticipating because that's what we've seen with other industries that have opened.
Do you have any other questions?
Did I answer that, Mary? Was that? Okay. I can actually see you, so I'm not.
Yeah, sorry. We have like a swinging door in and out of our kitchen, but it is closed off. That's helpful.
And actually, you know, swinging door where you don't have to actually put your hands on it is a good idea.
Right, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
I just have one question.
Sure.
I figured I could talk faster than I can type. Someone mentioned here on the comments about signage and that other businesses like supermarkets are using signage about 6 feet and, you know, directional arrows and things like that. I was wondering if the town had any plans on making any type of consistent signage so that we all kind of are communicating the same message to our restaurant customers throughout the town.
Yeah, I think branding the message so it's a recognizable symbol that a lot of people see. So actually, that's really how this whole thing started. Was I sent out some signs that the health department had made to Charlotte and Tom to sort of distribute out there about face coverings. What we've seen in phase 1 with the businesses that have been allowed to open is that there is some state required signage, and that's all already available on the website. There's sort of 8.5 by 11 that talks about social distancing, face coverings, hand washing, that every industry that is open in phase 1 needs to post. And there's also a certification form to say that you have developed a control plan and that you are self-monitoring. So there's sort of 2 8.5 by 11s that the state has developed, which I anticipate as other industries open will also be required. And those are available. Maybe we could I don't know if Pat can do that real quick, but maybe he could put the link in the chat. But that's right on the this mass.gov/reopening page.
Sigal, can we send out an email once the guidance has been issued by the state and set up another one of these meetings so we can continue to have a discussion about what the requirements are going to be?
I think that's a great idea. I think I don't know, like I keep saying, I don't know when they're going to be released. We are on a conference call yesterday and they said that it will be coming out this week. So I'm guessing like Friday at 4. But you know, it's been a bit of a roller coaster with constantly changing environment, and it's really hard to enforce and regulate and even just educate because it's constantly changing. But yeah, Paul, in short, I think that's a great idea. And
Okay.
I'm looking at Charlotte, maybe she could facilitate this again.
All right, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and thanks Sigal and Charlotte and Tom and Joe and Pat for coordinating today's meeting. As we just said, we will reach out to you once the guidance has been provided by the state, and we will schedule another one of these meetings, giving you all a couple days notice, and hopefully we can reconvene and provide some better answers to the questions that you all have.
Thank you, everyone. Sigal, thank you. Paul, thank you. And Joe, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Great to meet like this. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody signing on. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time.